Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of QnA. Throughout the structure of the video, it's going to be in regards of Digital Homicide and Christopher Weston Chandler. Episodes 4 and 5 that needs explanation and corrections that needed to be addressed. The story idea was that my character was enjoying New Year's until he gets a phone call in regards of Digital Homicide, and that's where it just kind of spun from there, and then the documentary, sort of like an action-adventure type of thing. Throughout 90% of this entire video is just text-to-speech, while I'm the only actor that has to voice act in these mere cutscenes. Especially the end part, which I left it as a cliffhanger until I made another video in regards of Christopher Weston Chandler, and then it just evolved from there, and you know, the rest is history. James and Robert Romine are the no-talented ass clowns based off of Arizona that made Digital Homicide, being regarded as the most hated indie developers in video gaming history, such as taking pre-made assets from the Unity asset store and just cobble together as a video game and call it a day. They even go as far as deleting comments, threads, and banning users just to become even more of a piece of shit to not handle criticism of their own games. That is until Jim Sterling came along and blew this easy-baked bullshit wide open. Okay, this right here, I think it needs corrections. At first I thought the Forsaken Uprising is their first game, only to come and find out that the Slaughtering Grounds is their first original game before Forsaken Uprising. This game came out in October 2014, 2 months before Forsaken Uprising in December 2014, which is my bad on my part. In the profiles that I made about him, he is a critic, a YouTuber, and a professional wrestler, though his job is going through a Steam library and reviewing games that deserve the spotlight, while the crap cobbled together games do not. Think of IGN, only except that IGN is reviewing newer games that came out within the years, while Jim Sterling is reviewing crap cobbled together games that shouldn't even be there on Steam. That's genuinely it, really. Oh boy, where should I even start with this complicated mess? I think it would be better if I just correct things along the way. What started is that Jim Sterling was reviewing the Slaughtering Grounds, and he labeled it as the failure of 2014 game, and it actually is and was, because of how shitty of a programming this game is. The Romine brothers of Digital Homicide were acting like total complete pussies to not handle criticism, decided to actually of course take a jab at Jim Sterling with response videos. It went on back and forth up until they had this bright idea to DMCA his video. Jim Sterling appealed this and stated the fact that it is under fair use due to their own policies, in which the video is reinstated. Funny enough, there is a similar situation with Gilson B. Pontes that Jim Sterling has a trouble run-ins with. But it also makes me think of that story and also along with this story that I'm about to tell you right here and right now. If this would have been continue onward with his appeal being rejected and YouTube however can't even help him in some such of regards, he would have taken Digital Homicide and YouTube to court, much in the same way with Gilson B. Pontes years later down the road. I mean, it could happen, but it never did, and that's why this whole thing however was dismissed. News about them and their shitty tactics had spread like wildfires, which reached to Angry Joe and Pro Jared on the same topic. While Digital Homicide, on the other hand, had gained the worst and infamous reputation for being one of the shittiest developers with this disgusting tactics. Especially the 4 games that came out in 2015, which Jim Sterling had covered. Especially, of course, Six Nights at Susie's. My first initial thoughts is that it was supposed to be a parody clone of Five Nights at Freddy's, only to come and find out that it's a tortured sim. Why the hell is this game on Steam? No one knows. Yet I have a hunch it has something to do with Jim Sterling. For reasons being is that Digital Homicide is just nothing but a low-tier effort developers who is just asset flipping this game with assets that are actually from the Unity asset store. In short, making a game with pre-made assets without any effort whatsoever. This continued onward until Jim Sterling made a mistake about how Galactic Hitman's cover art is actually from wherever else website that the Slaughtering Grounds may have came from, which prompted James Remine, the absolute cunt, saying that it came from Shutterstock. And not long after that, there was a Skype call conversation between Robert and Jim Sterling. How the Remine brothers got his phone number was due to the appeal that Jim submitted about his video in regards of Digital Homicide, The Slaughtering Grounds. This whole entire conversation became tongue-in-cheek until Robert told him that he needs to sign the papers and not discuss about Digital Homicide, otherwise they'll take him to court. Robert, being the absolute prick, didn't like what Jim Sterling said that he needs to speak with his legal team, causing Robert to sack up in retaliation, saying that the decision had been made and hung up. Further cementing proof that he's so much of a fucking pussy to not go through this whole court proceeding. If it did happen, that is until 2016 of March is when James Remine had filed a lawsuit against Jim Sterling for $10 million. That's how the first lawsuit started. They continued this crusade of this entire joke of a fucking lawsuit until a year later in February the 20th, 2017, when it was dismissed with prejudice. Aside from that, they tried to sue Jim Sterling for $10 million, which is a ridiculous amount of money. In normal lawsuits, it would be suing right around $10,000 to $20,000. Which there's a reasons why I had to take that 000 out of this equation. Jim Sterling openly admitted that there was an article at one point or another that existed within 40 minutes of publication until he deleted it. And James Remine, being the absolute cunt that he actually is, says that he has photographic evidence, which he does not. Especially, of course, Robert Remine. That's exactly what it's all boiled down to, that the Galactic Hitman and the Slaughter Grounds came from the same website, which he just corrected it within 40 minutes of publication because they wanted to sue him because of that. Yet these two schnitzel monsters wanted to stick with that story, and it gets fucking hilarious in the lawsuit. James Sterling seeks dismissal because he has better things to do than being yelled by a fucking idiot that says authoritative-wise. That's an exact quote from Jim, by the way, and point frankly, I agree with him. But sadly, it doesn't end there. Not only the first lawsuit was a fucking joke, but the second lawsuit is even more ridiculous than its first lawsuit. Instead of $10 million that they're requesting, it's $12 million, which I hate to say is pretty sad from these two pathetic pussies, but also seems desperate. Because the Remine brothers want to find every single last little evidence or such just to tack on how much it is as the big payout. Especially the ridiculous stunt with the $15 million in Remine vs. Stanton Mach 3. But this is only after Steam had closed their accounts and purged all their games. James Remine's claims are sporadic, hard to follow, and neither does Jim's lawyers know what the fuck he was talking about 90% in the courtroom. After Sterling's lawyer Bradley Hardman convinced Remine to drop the lawsuit, the court dismissed it with prejudice on February the 20th, 2017. Both Sterling and Remine were ordered to cover their respective court costs. And the rest, as you already now know, is pretty much in history. So after their account was closed on Steam and also lost the lawsuit afterwards, they created another account called Loot2 Games. Unfortunately, they're not selling anything else other than the defective Steam keys that Steam had purged them from the existence. In other words, they are scamming people with these useless Steam keys that are no longer functional. Especially the trading cards that they're getting a kickback even before and after the lawsuit. Did I mention that Robert Remine used to be a liquor salesman? Which explains why he is scamming a lot of people with this shitty tactics. Especially the 3 or 4 articles regarding about the lawsuit and blaming Jim Sterling for his fault in this whole chicanery. James and Robert Remine are nothing but cunts and total pussies to not take responsibility 3 or 4 years after they lost their lawsuit. I'm not sure what happened to the Remine brothers. I assume they went into hiding after Jim Sterling found this fuck donkey of a website with shitty articles. Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Chris Chan is the most documented individual on the planet but also the biggest lolcow on the internet. For reasons being is that he's been sheltered throughout his entire year after he was born in February the 24th, 1982. He was diagnosed with high-functioning autistic, but he has also developed other mental disabilities after he was either being trolled over the years. To put it simply, think of him as a toddler in a grown man's body, only he's just a pain in the ass to deal with. There's been written articles about him that shows further proof that he is not normal in hindsight, mainly due to people avoiding him due to the rotten smell of watermelon that people claims, and other times he's an unreliable narrator whenever journalisms are just trying to do research on him. Which there's a reasons why there's a website that is dedicated and created by the Christorians who did independent researches on Christopher Weston Chandler, either by his past and present. Reading from this article, it makes me feel like there's something sinister behind it. The first time I heard about him was Frederick Knudsen that made a video of Down the Rabbit Hole about Christopher Weston Chandler back in 2016. I'll put a link down below just to back up my statements, but he goes into details about his mannerisms and his bad qualities, further on cementing how much of a pain in the ass to deal with. But he is also the one that made the infamous comic book known as the Sonichu comic series that he made. Which is another thing I forgot to mention in the previous question, thought I'd just bring it up here. But also, aside from that, in the most recent, he got arrested on August 1st, 2021 on the alleged incest charge. People were buzzing like crazy back in the day when this happened. I have nothing against character hybrids other than it has either unique or interesting design, to hilarious or something else horrific. But with Chris Chan's case in the Sonichu comics, he implemented his life story being in the comics itself. That reflects on real life situation. His real life situation that would have played differently. Which is one of the reasons why it gained infamy for the internet to even later discovered in 2007 and up to 2008. A Pandora's box that nobody else is supposed to find. Oh, absolutely, without any exaggerations. Especially in regards of his religion, which, to be fair and to be honest with you, that I'm not a religious type of person, yet I have the study of theology. Aside from what I just said, he has of course have 7 bad qualities, which reflects in 7 sins, that he of course now has. Though given the circumstances, mind you, that he should have been raised properly instead of being a true pagan. A sinner, if you will, which I will get into details in just a minute. Aside from how the bad qualities might have started, and this is just a mere speculation, his bad qualities may have started ever since the Nathaniel Green Elementary School incident. He claims in his own words that the teachers have pinned him down and recorded his cries, but also on top of that, was forced to sit on the principal's lap. His own spun and made up version that never happened, giving much more of the reasons why he's an unreliable narrator in this entire story. According to Chris Chan and also the articles, that he claims that he is Christian religion, yet I highly doubt that because of the 7 bad qualities that he presents it. The 7 bad qualities that are now 7 deadly sins, and yet he's too blind to not notice it. His pastor had turned him away from the house of worship, all because of his discovery from the internet, or by his 7 bad qualities that Chris Chan has. But that was only in 2008. Fast forward to 2021, on August 1st when he was arrested and was put to jail, he'd written a letter that he wanted to rewrite the 10 Commandments, which is blasphemy. He also written that he is the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, which is also another blasphemy. Plus I heard rumors that he has a prayer rug that he plays cards on, which is just blasphemy to even do. The reasons I compare his life story to that of Dunwich Horror is because there was a similarity between those two in contrast, such as them being born in a strange and unusual family in each town, and both of them wanted to open a dimensional merge. The biggest difference is that Wilbur Whaley is highly intelligent, while Christopher Weston Chandler is the direct opposite. Wilbur Whaley has an accelerated aging by his weird and unusual appearance by unknown forces, while Chris is being labeled as an unblameless holy creature that he of course sees in the light. But the one thing they have in common is that both of their fathers died from a sudden heart attack. Although Old Man Whaley is not his father, yet he has that father figure otherwise. Both of their fates are completely different. Wilbur Whaley was killed by dogs while he disappeared into the void, while Chris Chan was arrested and was put to jail, which is weird to compare the similarities between the two. The story goes is that he was arrested on the alleged incest charge on August 1st, 2021, but also stole the $750 from his mother's bank account. Me personally, I think he might have done it on his own fruition and not anybody else, because of the three provided evidence that says it all. Especially Noel, one of the members of the Kiwi Farms, and the key witnesses that figured it out that Chris was having a sexual relationship with his mother. Due to the amount of information that Chris had given to Noel, he figured it out 2 and 2 together that it was Barbara Weston Chandler. Noel stated that Chris had posted a photo of a book called Pleasure the Elderly, which further cement the evidence. The reasons why Noel cut ties with him is because Chris stole the $750 from Barbara's account, after he found a bank statement stating that Barbara gave the $750, which in all actuality, it was not. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that Chris, the absolute cunt, stole the $750 from his mother's account and spent the night at a motel and then go shopping the next day. Did I ever forgot to mention that he has a very unusual spending habits? To make a long story short, his court hearing was supposed to happen on September, then it got pushed to November, and then it got pushed to February of 2023, only to end up in the mental institution for 3 months after he was admitted in March of 2023. And then he ended up back in the same jail that he was arrested at the very beginning, only to come and find out that another court hearing was supposed to happen in July, but never came. To put it shortly, the justice system doesn't know what to do with him. I also forgot to mention about the fucked up jail letters that he actually written, especially the letter that tells the story of his motive as to why he did it. The reasons he had a sexual relationship with his mother is to wipe away her sins. Yeah, that has got to be the stupidest and most of all fucking blasphemous I've ever heard. Especially the audio phone call conversation between Christopher Weston Chandler and Isabel Janke, which is also a third and final key evidence against Christopher Weston Chandler. Although the reasons why this audio was never reported to the police or was released into the internet itself, however, was because she was about to use it as blackmail or by trolling purposes. The story of how the audio got leaked was that there was an autistic girl that looked up to Chris Chan as her idol, only to hear this audio conversation that she was horrified that she had no choice but to release it out into the public. After that, she ended up into the mental clinic, which must have been hard for the poor girl. And as for Isabel Loretta Janke, she and her co-conspirators are nothing but filthy, slimy worms that wanted to absolutely, of course, troll Chris Chan with this hardcore evidence that is used as blackmail purposes. The last I heard, he was released from jail on August of 2023, yet nobody knows exactly for sure where he lives. Yet there are some other reports of people that seen him, either shopping or conventions. Me personally, I think he's just trying to hide himself from the public view, mainly due to the crimes that he committed against, of course, Michael Snyder back in the days of 2011 at the game place, and as well as the recent one, the incest charge. There's also a pepper spray assault on a GameStop employee, which is actually on record, which I kind of forgot to include that in the conversation of the previous crimes he committed. But overall, no one knows exactly where he is. I kind of prefer myself to be classified, although I will tell you the shortest amount of details. Outside of making videos, I work at a superstore, and in my free time I make either art projects or just play video games. That's just genuinely it really, just busy with life of outside of making videos. What inspired me to make videos in the first place was internet historian and Sheriff John Bonnell from the World's Wildest Police videos. An action-adventure documentary. Aside from the inspiration, the reasons why the videos have been taking me that long to make is because either I was busy with life, such as like work and whatever else happens at home, or possibly, of course, ideas that I need to come up with for the next video documentary. Not only that, I have like 2 files that I have to hop between the two, such as like the text-to-speech and also the documentary. The reasons I have those 2 files is to reduce the choppiness whenever I'm producing these mere documentaries that I'm doing, but also working on delivery one-liners whenever I'm just making like a movie reference. That's why it had taken me that long just to make a video. It's not that I wanted to stop making videos, I enjoyed making videos that I just wanted to share my information and make documentaries. It's the balances that I just needed. And with that note, I will be making a Halloween video, it's just that don't expect 24/7, since I'm just taking a short break from it.
And it's time to say goodbye to all of you. But I'll be seeing you again very soon. Goodbye.